Hello, my friends. It's Ranger Russ from the Meggs Point Nature Center. Getting set to do our Purple Martin program. You can see there's a couple on the left-hand house. One of them looks very purple. The other one looks a little more brown. So it is a beautiful day here at the park. It's clouded over, but the temperature is perfect. There's a nice breeze that keeps the mosquitoes away. And we have a couple of volunteers here today that are going to be doing what they do to monitor and care for the Purple Martins. We track them, clean them, make sure everything is going well in the Purple Martin houses. So John and Shannon will be going down and checking it out. They volunteer at the Meggs Point Nature Center and with Monuckatuck Audubon. So let's give a shout out to Monuckatuck Audubon. They helped us purchase all the houses, all of the Purple Martin houses that are here in the park were contributed through the Friends of Hammonasset and Monuckatuck Audubon. Originally it was 50-50. I'm not sure what we're at now because we have a lot of Purple Martin houses. When I started here, there were two Purple Martin houses behind the Nature Center. They were not the best condition. See, the volunteers are getting down there, and the birds are taking off. Zoe is asking if we are open, and no, we are not open yet, and I do not have an opening date yet. As soon as I have a date, I will start to promote it and let everyone know about that. So when I started, the Purple Martin houses were very small. The openings were not very deep. They were actually a little bit banged up. They weren't in the greatest condition. And I think John started monitoring them shortly after I started here in the old houses. And those old houses, because of their depth and the condition, it just wasn't the best circumstance. We were actually losing Purple Martins because of the condition of the houses. On a stormy or a windy day when the rain blows into the house, that's really not good for the Purple Martins. And they wouldn't be able to survive getting soaking wet. So John did some research and found these houses that we could purchase. And the first two houses, we got two originally to replace the two that were there, were put in almost immediately after that. And since then, we've added another house here, and then there were two houses at down by Chase Pond. Most people know it as Swan Pond. At the west end of the park, those houses were replaced. If you notice, John was just tapping on the pole. That lets the birds know. Purple Martins have really adjusted to people. Originally, the Native Americans would hang gourds from trees, and they began nesting in the gourds. And over time, they became completely dependent on those gourds or man-made nests. So here on the East Coast, they almost exclusively nest in man-made homes. On the West Coast, they nest in natural cavities. But the East Coast is very different dynamic with the martins here. Now, the Purple Martin is the largest member of the swallow family. The males are a deep dark purple. In this light, it will look like they're black. In most light, they look like they're black. They hunt for insects on the wing. So they eat on the wing and they drink on the wing, like most swallows. That's how they catch their food, is in flight. And then they will swoop down and just skim the water with their beaks to get a drink. So they've got one door open, checking inside to see what's there. I'm going to see if I can get a little closer here. So I'm in the Purple Martin meadow. We put this garden in to keep the public away from the martins to minimize their distress and disturbance. They are used to people. They like the houses near structures, but too many people would be not a good thing. And we actually did have some circumstances where people were trying to grill underneath the martin house, and you can imagine the smoke coming up from that. Not the best circumstance for a wild animal. We have a question. How many stories high? How large are they? So these are our 4-story martin houses. You can see the size compared to John and Shannon. These are pretty good sized houses. An egret just landed behind the cedar tree behind them. That was really cool. But you probably didn't get to see it. Okay, Shannon has a baby in here. 2. 4.
4 chicks. They are 16 days old. You can see their feather shafts. Their feathers have really come in well. They start out pretty naked, a little bit of fuzz, but they're all very healthy. We don't see any bugs on them. The nest is very old, so we're replacing the nest material with white pine needles, very dry, very clean needles. Skim off the top layer under a white pine, make sure they're clean, and we can replace the nest material. It is not what the birds normally use to start their nest, but they're very accepting of it, and we seem to think that the pine needles might have a little bit of an effect in keeping the insects away. So sometimes they deal with mites and things like that. We had ant infestations before, but right now these guys are all clean, other than their nest is looking a little tired and dirty, so we're giving them fresh nest material.
So, and that's just to reduce the chance of insects and parasites and things like that.
Exactly.
That might cause a problem for them. Now, at one point, the martins were on the endangered species list. Are they still listed as endangered? Now they are threatened. I know that doesn't sound much better. It is threatened is an improvement from endangered.
Special concern.
A special concern, which
it's an elevated level of concern.
Yeah, special concern though means they could be listed as endangered at any time, because a lot of times with special concern we're not sure what the population condition is. So I'm going to show you over John's shoulder here. You can see what the nest material looks like. The little nest there. Those babies look younger than the other ones.
So these are 5 chicks and they are 6 days old.
So one of the great things that's being done here is these chicks are monitored regularly and recorded. Their ages. Oh look, they're opening their mouths because they're so hungry.
6 days old.
A little 6-day-old martin. No feathers on these.
So we're going to change the nest material.
So that's the original nest material, right? That's what the martin would use. It looks like a lot of Phragmites, a lot of reed in there.
A lot of small Phragmites, and they put in green leaves. A lot of the times the leaves are from apple trees.
So that's cool. So with the monitoring that goes on with these nests, we're able to really track how well the colony is doing. And we can tell whether it's a weather event or something else that causes a decline. I mentioned earlier, John's the one that tracked. We had, I think it was 21 when in the old nesting boxes. We lost 21 fledglings in one storm. And that was a really big concern So this way we are doing a lot better. You notice how much deeper this nesting box is. So when it does storm, the water isn't going to be able to get onto the babies. The DEP does tag martins, and we have done, or the banding, we have banded them here. But obviously with the restrictions this year, we're not going to be doing banding. As far as I know, not doing banding anywhere. And the adults are flying around. Once in a while I'll see one pass overhead. Again, they hunt on the wing. They hunt at high elevations though. They will hunt up to, I think it's 3,000 feet up. So 900 to 3,000 is the range that they're hunting for prey. I've actually at one point had a entomologist that was studying dragonflies come, and he set up a scope and watched the purple martins bringing in the dragonflies so that he could identify the dragonflies that they were catching. And that's how he was doing a survey on dragonflies, was to see what the martins were able to catch. And Heidi is now watching. Shannon.
These are 11 days old, 2 chicks. You can see the different stages. The last ones we just took out were 6 days old, and they were quite bald. They're a little further along than the last one.
A bit more pin feathers on there. Nice little downy fluffiness.
You notice their poops are encapsulated. That allows the parents to pick that up with their beak and go drop it elsewhere. Easy cleanup.
You did hear that correctly. The mother bird will grab the encapsulated poop and fly away. Fecal sac. Let's get technical. Fecal sac. Fly away and drop it somewhere else, away from the nest. So it helps keep the nest clean. Although
Doesn't allow the predators to track it as well.
harder for predators to track and find it. Although these are not the cleanest birds. Some of these nests that I've seen opened up are pretty messy. And before we did this regularly, at the end of the season when we would go in and clean the nest out, it was pretty disgusting. So doing this more often is a much more efficient, much better for the birds. Again, they are very used to people. John taps on the pole again, and that signals the birds. So they become used to that routine. That tapping means, okay, the nest will be down, but they know it will be back up. So, really cool. Oh, so we've got some older ones here. These are going to be 20 days old. Nancy says her house was struck by lightning and the babies perished. What can I do to avoid this in the future? Thank you for all you do. So I'm not sure how easy it would be to put lightning arresters on one of these houses. This is a tall pole, so I don't know if you grounded the pole out, if that would help. I'm going to have to talk to the electricians about that, but I will check that out and see if we can post something online about how you can reduce the chance of your poles getting, or nests getting hit by lightning, because this does look like a lightning rod standing here.
Those are 3 chicks. They were 17 days old. We're not changing the nest material.
Okay. So
It's a little risky when they're older, to take them out, because they might want to fly off.
They become a flight risk.
So when they're getting ready to fledge, when they're just about that age where they might be able to fly, they don't change the nest material because they don't want the birds to take a chance of flying off, or partially flying off and then crashing or flying away when they're not ready yet. So Great idea. Like I said, John has been doing this getting close to 20 years now. John, yeah?
Feels like it.
He says it feels like it. But this comes with a lot of experience.
So Ross, if you want to come closer, I'm going to show you this one.
When we were here on 7.5, there were 6 eggs.
So this was an example of a nest where they laid 6 eggs in this one. And I'll take it out. And they should have hatched by now. What was the date that they were laid?
3 eggs, let's see. 3 eggs, 4 eggs, 7 eggs. There were 7 eggs.
Wow.
7 and dropped to 6. So there's 7 eggs on,
But it's been a few weeks.
yeah, 6/19.
Yeah, they should have hatched already. They're probably not going to hatch. I'm sure they were not going to hatch, but I'm just going to leave it there for now. Something could have happened to the adults. They could have gotten killed, could have abandoned the nest, for whatever reason, we don't know.
So without incubation, the eggs aren't going to... So they can lay, it's 3 to 8 eggs. They average usually a little less than 8.
Usually it's 4 to 6, most often.
So 4 to 6 would be a typical clutch. 8 would be a very large clutch. 3 would be a small clutch.
I've seen as many as 7. That's the most I've seen.
So the most John has seen is 7. Experience is always better than a book. So even though the book says they could lay up to 8 eggs, that would be an unusual, kind of like our osprey having 4, but that happens.
1 chick in this one.
Yeah, this is really unusual. This particular cavity, there's only 1 baby in it. And
There were 4 eggs initially.
yeah, and only 1 egg hatch, which is highly unusual. So the advantage of that bird is that it's going to get all the food that the parents can supply. But the disadvantage is he doesn't have any warmth from the other nestlings that would normally be there.
Right.
So, I mean, right now it's not so bad, but earlier, a few weeks ago, it was a bit cooler, and especially at night, he doesn't have anybody to keep him warm other than the parents in there.
That's a good point. So having a group of babies is going to be better for survival. Having too many, not so good for the weaker ones, but having 1 or fewer, or 1 or 2, not so good either. So we have a question. Are they the only birds that use the condo style housing? And why is that? And do they enjoy community? So I can tell you that yes, these are communal birds. These birds like to be in groups together. This particular style of condo housing, these are the only native birds to use it. We do get house sparrows, and we could get starlings. Although when we look at the next box, I'll show you why the starlings aren't nesting in there. And that's something that has that's an adjustment that we've made over the years, changing the opening so that the starlings aren't able to get in there. How often, John, do you find house sparrows?
This year we've been really lucky. I removed 2 or 3 house sparrow nests earlier this year, like maybe a month ago, and they haven't been back since, which is very unusual. Years past, there's always, at least a couple that persist throughout the whole nesting season that we have to deal with. But you were talking about starlings, and starlings can't get into these smaller openings.
So you can see that half moon opening there.
They're called starling resistant entrances.
That's pretty neat. That's why they're there. This is sometimes in the spring when the purple martins first arrive, people can't see that opening from the ground and they think that we haven't opened them up yet, but they are open. I remember another issue that we were having with the other martin house that we had. They all shared one porch across, and that meant that one of the birds would pick, there were 3 openings, one of the birds would pick it, and they would not, the other birds wouldn't be able to nest because they would get territorial. Green parrot condo.
2 days ago, there were 4 chicks 3 days old, so now they're 5 days old. John removed 1 egg, and now you're seeing how many chicks, John?
There's only 3.
3 chicks, so we're missing a chick.
One is missing.
Sure he's not underneath the leaf or something? Maybe you want to pull
So
it out.
we're missing 1 chick out of this nest.
Well, it's interesting because when I came here 2 days ago, this same cavity, I found that one of the chicks was on the ground.
Okay.
And I picked it up and put it back in the cavity. And now I see that there's one missing again. I don't know if it's the same one, that maybe the parents took it out or kicked it out for a particular reason, but it's not here.
It would make sense if it's the same one. Someone is mentioning that the parrots will nest together. They will. They like to build very large nests, but they build their own nests. They won't use a man-made condo like these.
This nest is a little fresher than some of the others you've seen.
Lots of grasses on that nest.
Some of the leaves are still kind of green. We're not going to change that one out though, that's still in good shape.
Overall, the populations of purple martins at Hammonasset have increased. They increased pretty dramatically when we switched over to this house. A lot more success, this house style. I've already mentioned a couple of the issues with the old house. You can see there are some gourds here. Did they use any of these gourds this year?
All 3 of them.
So all 3 of the gourds are used. This is more resemblant of what the Native Americans would have used. My gimbal doesn't want to go that direction. There we go. The Native Americans would have hung gourds in trees, hollowed out gourds with a hole in them, and that's what the purple martins would have nested in. So that would have been considered maybe a pet or just a slightly domesticated bird. They do migrate to the Caribbean, Mexico, a little bit of Central America. I don't think any of these go all the way to South America. And they will arrive. They arrive with a scout. It's actually not really a scout. It's not a bird coming back to make sure everything's okay. They just call it a scout. And my understanding is that the scouts are really the mature birds that have used the platform, the boxes in the past. So that's what our scouts are.
These are 4 chicks, 12 days old.
If anyone has any questions, you can put them up at any time. I'm sure between the 3 of us we can figure out an answer. If you want to see other programs, this morning I had a fantastic experience with a sandhill crane. You can view that on Facebook Live. It will be going up onto the website, megspointnaturecenter.org's virtual learning center. You'll also eventually, it will be up on the Megs Point Nature Center's YouTube channel. So that was a good long program with a sandhill crane. Also, if you continue to put up where you're messaging from, we like to see that. These are such cool little birds. When they were still in the nest, they start opening their mouths to beg for food. And then when John takes them out, they realize that it's not food. So they close up and then they lay down. Ellery would like to know, how big starlings get. So starlings get a little bit larger, a little bit heavier than the purple martins. Their wingspan isn't as large as a purple martin. But let's show this cavity again. They have a hard time ducking down and going into the opening, and they're a little bit too thick for going through that opening. So there's two things that discourage them with these half-moon openings.
These are way up higher on their legs.
So their knees are too high. It makes it hard for them to duck down and squeeze through that opening. So thank you, Ellery, for that question.
So Russ, you want to look in this cavity? V8. See, the martins went through great trouble to build a really nice nest here. See how there's a kind of a mud dam in front of it?
Yeah.
That's kind of what a typical nest looks like, but they never laid eggs. It's been abandoned ever since.
Okay, so that's another thing that monitoring does. It allows us to see that a nest was built and not used. And they spent a lot of time on the nest as well, so not sure why that may have happened. So we want to make sure that we thank the volunteers that monitor the bird nests at Hammonasset. There are other volunteers that go out into the salt marsh. And so there's one begging for food, mouth wide open. Now it closes its mouth.
So these guys are 4 days left. Well, I'm not going to change the nest cavity on this one, or nest material on this one yet.
So
Still very fresh.
nest material again is good, so we'll limit the effect on the birds by not changing the nest material out. Let's take a look and see. They're maneuvering back into their positions after getting their checkup. It's like going to the doctor regularly. And now look, they're begging for food. So when the adult would go in there, the babies all reach up, open their mouths, and the mother just starts sticking the food in the hole. Dylan says hello. Hello, Dylan. He's very excited for this today. Do the parents ever attack you while you're cleaning? Never. John says never.
Sometimes they actually stay in the cavity.
Oh, wow. I don't know if you could hear that. Sometimes they will stay in the cavity while John is doing this, and they don't want to come out. That's from Lake Champlain. That's awesome. So are purple martins found in Vermont? There's my question of the day. Do the parents get mad when the nest is being changed out? And they don't seem to get agitated or angry at all. If the bird were agitated, you would expect to see a lot of low swooping, a lot of chattering. I see some circling around, but they're just passing by, don't seem to really mind. They're just patiently waiting until the monitoring work is done. John, what do you find the most fascinating thing about purple martins to you?
They come back here all the way from Brazil. So a distance of what, 3,000 miles or so? Every year to the same location, almost to the same cavity sometimes, for this one single opportunity to reproduce. And if they're not successful here, then this breeding season or nesting season, that's it. They're all done. They don't get another chance.
So they do come from as far away as Brazil.
Yeah. Sao Paulo, Brazil. There's a huge congregation that flocks together down there.
But these don't migrate in the large groups that we see tree swallows migrating in.
They stage in different areas of the country, like down in Texas, Lake Pontchartrain. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands will stage in that area.
Okay.
From all over the Northeast and even the West. And before they make the final leap to Brazil.
So we get a staging of tree swallows on the mouth of the Connecticut River. They will stage down on Lake Pontchartrain, similar to what the tree swallows do, but they're staging there. There's probably other staging areas, smaller staging areas that lead to the larger ones.
Actually, if you go into the Connecticut River to watch the tree swallows congregate, in the fall, a lot of times there's martins mixed in there too. Not to the same number as the tree swallows, but there could be hundreds.
So yeah, that's awesome. I've watched the tree swallows on the mouth of the Connecticut. It's really hard to pick out any one bird because there's so many. It's absolutely amazing. I guess I'm going to have to do a program there when it gets to be that time. So from Vermont, they're saying that they are found in Vermont, but she hasn't seen one in Vermont. And it is a good idea. This process is done. You can see I'm probably slowing the process down a little bit, but John and Shannon, they have a system. It's a quick process. Even though the birds are not agitated, it's still a good idea to do this as quickly and efficiently as possible. And how long do purple martins live? You know what their lifespan is?
It's like 5 to 7 years or so.
5 to 7? That sounds about right. I think the tree swallows are 5, they say 5 years, so probably pretty close to that.
These are the largest in the swallow family.
And they are the largest swallow. They can reproduce in after they're a year. So if you come to Hammonasset, again, the Meigs Point Nature Center is closed. The park remains open. And we do ask you to maintain your social distance. If you're not able to maintain social distance, please wear a face covering. The face coverings are just a precaution. That's just help the people around you. But social distance for purple martins is quite a bit further. There's a
These guys are 21 days old. There's 5 of them.
Oh, these guys are big. There's the gourd family. You can see the mud of the nest right in there. That's awesome. They're watching me.
Usually like around 25 or 26 days, they'll fledge.
So these guys are only 3 or 4 days away from flying on their own.
But even once they fledge, they'll come back at nighttime and roost together.
That's a good point. So birds that fledge, some birds, once they fledge, they never return to the nest, but purple martins do return to the nest. The osprey return to the nest too after they fledge, quite a bit. Because they're still not very good hunters, so they need help.
2 days old. Oh, little. These are little. These are 2 days old. They had just hatched 2 days ago.
So these look like the youngest
Yeah,
ones we've seen so
are.
far. So we just saw the oldest and the youngest.
When I was here 2 days ago, I think there's 5 or 6. I forget.
There are 6.
So there was 5 of them that were completely out of the egg, and the 6th one was half in and half out. So I was here, so I just kind of helped them, and I took the other half of the egg off them. But they look healthy. So even though they're laid over a period of 6 consecutive days, they all hatch on the same day.
That's
Within
another
a 24-hour period.
Yeah, that's another very good point. Is they will be laid over a period of time, but hatch about the same time. And other birds are a little bit different. They will lay days apart and hatch days apart.
4 chicks, 12 days. You want to look in here? So these are 4 chicks that are 12 days old.
12 days old. They're keeping an eye on us. So what I'm noticing in the gourds, they're all towards the back of the gourd. Right. Is there something in there that is a little bit higher or a segmented, or they just choose that?
It's just a flat bottom, but they always nest always in the way to the back. Same thing with the cavities, they'll always nest as far back as they can.
So that tells me that the adult birds are pretty smart, knowing that with a strong wind and rain, it could blow water into an opening. They nest far back so that it reduces the chance of the young being exposed.
Plus it helps prevent owls or crows or anybody else trying to pull them out.
That's another good point. It reduces the predators.
Sit here and they can reach their feet in there and
Yep.
they can only go so far.
And if you notice, there is a predator guard here. That's just going to keep things from climbing up the pole. But flighted predators would be able to land on the perch there if they could. They'd have a hard time reaching in and grabbing the young. So you can see, again, Monunkatuck Audubon helps us. You can see their name is on. Here, let's show. There we go. There's Monunkatuck Audubon's sign on the thing here. So you can go to monunkatuck.org and learn more information. And if you'd like to volunteer or help out with bird nesting, you can go there to do that. How many sets of parents per house, typically?
1.
No,
Per cavity?
Per cavity, you're only going to have 1. How many per condo?
Well, there's 16 cavities.
16 pairs, nesting pairs.
So
1
they're,
pair per cavity, they don't share.
yeah, these have 16, so there could be up to 16. And the number, I guess, depends on how many purple martins we have in the area. So that one's up. There's a couple adults just circling around here. I'm gonna move back up over here. All right, so let's see how long it takes for the parents to return. There's 1, 2, circling, and there they go. They're back. They both landed on the top of a platform of a house. See how long it takes for them to go in. Here comes another one. 2 more coming in. Doesn't take them long. Landing on the top of that one. Looks like the top of the condo is the best place to sit because all 3 now are taken. This one's circling. That looked like a female.
Listen to their song. They have a really beautiful song. They go chortle at night. I love to come around sunset, and you hear they all start coming in to roost. The parents parents with the baby, with the chicks. They make this just great chortling sound. It's just fun to sit back and listen to them.
They do have a pretty beautiful call.
Very distinctive.
There's more of them coming down. Thank you, Lori. This meadow is maintained by our gardening committee of the Friends of Hammonasset. So the gardening committee, they take care of, I think we're up to 8, 9 gardens, maybe 10. There are different types of gardens we have here, and I will be doing a program on the gardens. This is the Purple Martin Meadow is what it's called. Then we've got a pollinator garden, a Three Sisters garden, there's a rain garden, a coastal garden, lots of different kinds of gardens. So there's already a Purple Martin at the door. Looks like it's getting ready to go in. There's a few Purple Martins landing. Here's another one coming in and circling away. Is the lowest house in use. That third one that's down low is not in use. It's only used, it's only put up if the other two fill up. And we didn't get these full, so there's no need to put that one up higher. And there are more houses and more in use at the west end of the park.
For anyone interested in putting up their own Purple Martin house, if you're going to put it up, you need to monitor it. It's very important so you don't breed invasive species like the house sparrow and the starlings.
That's a really good point. If you are going to invest in putting up a Purple Martin house, first of all, I would suggest doing some research and getting a very good house. Let's wait for this helicopter to go by. That was quick. Get the good style of house. They may be a little bit more expensive, but it's worth it to keep the birds alive. Like I mentioned before, we lost a lot of birds with that old style of house. And the other thing is that you do have to monitor it. It's a really good idea. It's going to increase the number of young that are able to survive. And you don't want to encourage the reproduction of invasive species, which I haven't mentioned it, but when we had starlings going into the nest, they would kill the martins if they wanted to nest in the same nest. Even a smaller house sparrow will go in and poke holes in the martin eggs. So it's a really good idea to continue to monitor and take care of the nest if you're going to attempt one of these houses. And they do like to be near water, and they do like open areas. You know, they hunt on the wing. They are birds of flight, they don't like to have to avoid a lot of trees, so they're not going to be in a lot of tree cover. I just saw one went in on the right-hand side there. And the one on that left house is still just sitting at the doorway. That looks like a female. Females have that lighter belly. So right now we've got 6 birds sitting outside the nest. And it's only been, 5 minutes since we walked away. So they are not concerned by us doing this at all, and they do not appear to be stressed at all. And that is, part of the process. When you do this on a regular basis with them, they become acclimated to it and are not going to be as stressed out by it. But it's a really good idea to develop a routine when you're doing it. John taps the pole, that lets him know. Even the birds that we have inside the nature center, we've got the blue jays and the monk parakeets. We knock on the door before we enter just to let them know this is the beginning of the routine. There's going to be a person in there with you for a time. That just makes the birds a little more content. Now, if I pan over here, you're going to see there is a tree swallow box. Tree swallows are quite a bit smaller than the martins. Martins can be about 1.5 ounces. The tree swallows are only about an ounce. But sitting on top of that platform is an osprey. I don't know if you guys saw it, but a robin just flew in front of me as well. So, all right, do we have any questions? How often is it done? Monitoring, I guess it happens a couple of times a week.
Yeah, 2 to 3 times a week, about every other day, every 2 to 3 days.
So every 2 to 3 days, and it's only done while they're nesting. So they're here April to July. Into August. So April to August, this is done. These are one of the first birds to migrate away. It's one of the things that tells me the end of my summer is coming when they all disappear. It's always a sad time when the martins migrate away. They're a super interesting bird. I don't know why my gimbal just turned off there. Very interesting, very beautiful bird.
Yeah, the sun isn't on them right now, but they're more of an iridescent.
Yeah, Shannon's saying that they are absolutely gorgeous. When the sun is out and hitting them, that iridescent purple really shows up. You can see the lower right-hand gourd there. There's a female on the bottom by the entrance and a male above her. You can see how much darker he is. There's a female hovering in the back there. That was really cool. They hunt on the wing, so they're very good flyers. They need to be able to catch their prey. Looks like we have some questions here. Let me do. How do you prevent the invasive birds from trying to nest? So there's a few things you can do. You take away their nest every time you find an invasive. You take away their eggs. I think my gimbal's running out of battery here, so I'm just going to hold the camera. You take away the nest. You just continue to try and discourage them. Some people do try and catch the invasives and euthanize them, but you just really need to try and discourage those invasives from being in there. So yep, the birds have virtually no sense of smell, and almost no birds in Connecticut have a sense of smell. Their parental instinct is too strong. They are not going to abandon their young if they are handled or touched. The adult bird won't be able to smell it, first of all, and their parental instinct is going to have them continue to feed and care for their young. So that is not a concern to handle them and touch them. All right, I want to thank everyone for tuning in this morning. The Meggs Point Nature Center is closed. However, you can see lots of programs on our virtual learning center at meggspointnaturecenter.org. Please continue to follow us and like us on Facebook. That will tell your friends that you found something really cool to watch. I will continue to do these programs from Tuesday to Friday at 11 o'clock. And occasionally I throw in an extra program. So over the weekend I did a nice kayaking trip, which I was able to film some of that. Had a thick-necked root-boring beetle at my house over yesterday, so I filmed that. Those are all things that you can see on our virtual learning center or on our YouTube channel. So continue to tune in, and I hope you enjoy these programs. Until next time, this is Ranger Russ signing off from the Meggs Point Nature Center.